from first to last, the music today has told such a great story, so appropriate as we're going to look at our end times and know that the King is coming and that he's coming soon. And things started off so beautifully. If you don't know the song, There Is a Redeemer, it was written by Keith and Melody Green. And Keith was a great Christian songwriter and singer. Died tragically in the 80s, plane crash. But his wife, Melody, had helped him write that song. And he said the first times he tried to sing that in performing, he said it was so hard, he would always cry because it's such a lovely song. So what a terrific beginning. And David, thanks for taking us right up to the throne of God through all the music choir. Thank you so much. And perhaps the perfect bookend to the morning scriptures I wrote about God bringing the rain. Miss Barbara put such an appropriate message, just a little vignette, a little illustration, almost a mini sermon right in our bulletin that you can read right on the way home. So, what a great day of worship. We're in Revelation 5, kind of finishing. Yes, brother? What if you're not driving home? What if you're just riding home? Even easier. You won't have to take you're right, Kevin. If you are driving home, don't look at it then. If, like Kevin, you're riding home, you can look at it. That's a great point. Don't be looking at your bulletin on the drive home. But on the ride home, you can. And as you do get home, be in prayer for Ellen and I, because we're heading right after service to Black Mountain, North Carolina to pick up our grandsons. So be in prayer there. All right, Revelation 4, as we're continuing a sermon I began last week. And if I could ask Ellen, just by way of overview, if you would just flip to the slide showing visually the timeline that we had put in there. It's not okay, no problem. I will announce that. I'll kind of take us through right now. Because what I want to do is talk about the times, the troubles, and the triumph. I want to give you an overview of how Revelation is going to play out, give you the whole big picture, and then come back to look at specific times that we're in now and differentiate them from the times to come. So if we were talking about where we are right now, we are in what John would call, and when he was writing in Revelation, the things which are to come, or the things that must be. It's after what was, that is, when Jesus was here on the earth. It's after the time John would say what is, right, when he's writing to those churches, when John's alive but Jesus' ministry on earth is past. He's looking to what is to come. And we are in John's what is to come times. We're right there. And so I want to give you the picture. First, we're going to talk about the rapture and how that's different from the time of great tribulation. We have the rapture, then we have the time of great tribulation. Then we have Jesus' second coming. Following the second coming of Jesus, during the tribulation, evil will reign. The church will be out of the earth, taken out of the earth. The Spirit will still be here, but the church will be taken out of the earth, and evil will reign on the earth for a period of 7 years. And then Jesus' second coming will happen. So Revelation 5, all the way up through 18, the next 13 weeks, we're going to be looking at the times and the troubles. what's going on in earth as God is painstakingly detailing what those troubles look like. And then in Revelation 19, we'll talk about the triumph. Jesus returns and vanquishes evil for a time. How long? 1,000 years. Then comes his millennial reign, Revelation 20. And then for just a short season, Satan is going to be loosed again one more time. And then eventually thrown into the lake of fire. And the new heaven and the earth will take place. And we shall be there for all, from the time of the rapture, we shall see all these things come to pass, and we will evermore be safe as soon as we are raptured off the earth. New heaven and the new earth, the last 2 chapters of Revelation. So that's the picture, right? We're going to talk now about the rapture and the lead up to the time of the Great Tribulation, but you've got the whole picture, right? Rapture, time of tribulation, the evil times from chapters 5 to 18, and then the second coming, the 1,000-year reign of Christ, the new heaven and the new earth. That's all. Those last 3 are found at almost the very end of Revelation. So you got the big picture? Okay, well, let's locate us right where we are now in the rapture. Matthew chapter 24 is where we're going to camp out, but I want to take you just for a second to Matthew 23. Remembering always, church, that if we are going to summarize the whole book of Revelation in one pithy, succinct, 2-word message, how do we describe the whole message of the book of Revelation, and indeed the whole Bible in 2 words? Jesus wins. Can we say that together? Jesus wins. That's Revelation in a nutshell. Now, if you turn to Matthew 24, okay, we're going to read where Jesus left the temple and was going away. Verse 1, when his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. And it says in other places, do you see how beautiful they are? In other Gospels, do you see how beautiful these stones are? But Jesus answered them. Verse 2. You see all these buildings. You see all these. Do you not? Okay. Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. Wow. They come out of church service. They're walking out. It's as if we all walked out and he shook my hand and said, great sermon, Pastor, great sermon. Isn't God good? Isn't being a Christian wonderful? Isn't life great? And we were standing out in the parking lot and you turned and you said, hey, notice how they painted the columns? And they have. And they looked really good. And notice how some things have been painted and fixed? And they have. And they look really good. Or imagine it's after the 5th Sunday coming up and we walked out and we'd been on the new carpet in the Family Life Center. And everything's getting sparkly and nice and fixed up. Or imagine we walked out and said, doesn't that sound booth that's now painted and stained, doesn't that look great? And oh, when that carpet gets on that sound booth, how great that's going to look. And we were all sitting there, standing out in the parking lot and said, oh, Pastor, doesn't everything look great? And imagine if I stopped and I got quiet and I looked you in the face with steely eyes and said, not one scrap of wood, not one bit of carpet is going to be here. And you're going to see that come to pass in your lifetime. This is all going to be thrown down rubble, done. You're probably in your mind having the same reaction that the bewildered disciples had when Jesus said what he said. And as he sat on the Mount of Olives, verse 3, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be?" One, when will these things be? You've just said the temple is going to be thrown down. Another scripture says, not one stone will be left upon another. And Jesus knew this was going to happen because Jesus says, he knew the hearts of all men. You know why one stone was not left upon another? Because inside the temple, the walls and the ceiling had been overlaid with gold. And when the priests and some of the people ran into the temple to seek refuge when the Romans were hunting them in AD 68 to 70 and trying to destroy the Jews, they sought refuge in the temple. They locked the doors, and the Romans set fire to the temple. And all that gold inside on the stones in the ceiling, it was so hot it melted into the stones. And when the rubble was finally being cleared, the Romans would throw the stones down the hill. Why? To bust out the molten gold that had seeped into the stones. Jesus knew not one stone will be left upon another. And he predicted it. He prophesied it. By the way, as we study Revelation, do you know that over one third of the Bible is prophecy? You never thought of that, did you? But think of all the writers from Isaiah and Ezekiel and Daniel and Paul and Jesus, all prophesying, all Malachi and Amos and all those prophets had things to say about what was coming. And so Jesus is asked, first of all, when will these things be? And as for when these things, the destruction of the temple would be, we get a clue from Jesus if we go back into Matthew 23 just very quickly. Jesus tells us, in Matthew 23, he's pronouncing woes upon the scribes and upon the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the teachers of the law. He's stating woes upon them for the things they failed to do. And Jesus says in verse 34, therefore, Jesus says of himself, therefore, I send you, not the father of old in the Old Testament, back before I was born. Now we know Jesus has always been, but he hasn't always been on earth. Jesus is not saying this is back before I was born in Bethlehem and grew up. He's saying, no, not God then in the Old Testament. He's saying now. Jesus says, therefore, I send you. Jesus himself, I send you prophets and wise men and scribes. One of the prophets was John the Baptist, who came to tell that Jesus would be the Messiah, and him they killed. Another prophet and wise man and scribe, or another translation is teacher, another person we could say that fulfilled all three of those roles was the Apostle Paul. Wouldn't we say that? Didn't Paul have things to tell us about the things to come, about the man of lawlessness, about what was going to happen, about the rapture and the resurrection? Didn't Paul tell us about that? So Jesus is saying, I am going to send to you, you Pharisees, living right now in AD, this is about AD 32, maybe 33. He's saying right before he dies, I'm going to send these prophets and wise men and teachers. You're going to kill them. Some you're going to crucify them. Some you're going to flog. Paul was flogged. The other disciples, Jesus' apostles, were flogged. You will persecute them from town to town. Didn't that happen to the apostles? Didn't that happen to Paul? Yes. And he says, on you may come, so that on you may come all the righteous blood shed on earth. He's saying, just like your fathers, just like those before you, put to death the Old Testament prophets, so you're doing the same thing now. Truly, truly, verse 36 says, truly, I say to you, all these things. What things? Well, not just Jesus sending prophets, wise men, and teachers, not just the crucifixion and the martyrdom of these folks, but these things, the temple being destroyed, will come upon this generation. In other words, the people he was talking to right then would live, some of them would live to see this very thing happen. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often Jesus said, I would have gathered you together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. See, your house. Your house. What house are they talking about? The temple. The place that Jesus and his disciples were just about to be worshiping in and then walking out. And his disciples would say, look at these beautiful buildings. And Jesus said, it's all coming to naught. It's all going to be thrown down. Your house will be left to you desolate. Literally, because the stones will be thrown down. Spiritually, because God was not going to be in their temple when they crucified Jesus. They were rejecting God's presence in Jesus Christ, and because they were rejecting Jesus, God was going to turn his back on those believers who rejected Jesus and have the temple destroyed. Jesus said, we could have all been together. You could have been my covenant people, and this could have all been made right. Remember, Jesus said of himself, greater, he said of himself, greater than the temple is here, meaning himself. All the fullness of God was in Jesus Christ. In that day, Jesus did worship at the temple, the disciples did go to the temple, but you didn't have to go to the temple to be in the presence of God. You only had to be in the presence of Jesus. And he says, I would have gathered you, but see, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again. You will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Okay? So, Jesus tells them that. Then he foretells the destruction. They came to point out to him the buildings of the temple, chapter 24. Truly, not one stone, truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. And so they ask him, 3 questions. When will these things be? Destruction of the temple. He says, it's going to happen in your generation. By AD 70, guess what? The destruction of the temple happened in their generation. The temple will not be built back by Jesus during the time of the Great Tribulation. I said by Jesus. The temple will be built back where it was torn down. It will be, but it will be under the work of the Antichrist. and worship will take place that will eventually lead to the work of the Antichrist. So the temple was destroyed 68 to 70, right, around AD 70, and has not been built back yet. So that's the first question they ask. When will these things be? Then they ask, not just when will these things be, but when will be the sign of your coming? That's number 2. And then thirdly, when will be the signs of the end of the age? The signs of the end of the age. And those next 2, Jesus is going to talk about. And in Matthew 24, Jesus is going to answer that third question first. When will be the signs of the end of the age? Okay? What we would call right before the second coming. The time of the tribulation. What I've called the times and the troubles. When are those things going to happen? And what are the signs going to be? Well, Jesus gives us a number of those things, number of those signs. First, he says, verse 4, see to it, Matthew, no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name saying I'm the Messiah. In the last days, the times of the tribulation, there will be others coming and saying, I'm the Messiah. It happened before Jesus. It happened after Jesus. Back in about 1912, I believe, the Jehovah's Witnesses said Jesus has returned to earth and is living here secretly. Jesus is going to have an answer to that. There were folks, the Millerites, who had heard from someone they thought was a prophet in Indiana, William Miller, back in the early 19th, I believe it was the 19th century, it may have been the late 1800s, around 1880. In Indiana, William Miller predicted the second coming of Christ. And his followers, the Millerites, went up on a hill outside of town in Indiana. They went out there to await the second coming. They were jeered by a town drunk as they walked back in, tails tucked between their legs, shamefaced the next morning, returning to their homes. Because guess what? Jesus didn't show up then. They have since moved on and have likely died. The Reverend Sun Young Moon, you remember that name for about 2 decades back, came saying he was the Messiah. And there will be others to come. That's one of the signs. They will lead many astray. That's a sign. You will hear wars and rumors of wars. Don't be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is not yet. This is just a sign, and we're going to continue on, and we'll talk about these things. This is just a sign for the last days, when the age is about to end. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines. Do we have those increasing in our earth now because of drought, because of food shortages? Anybody tried to get baby formula? Is that a famine? It is if your youngin' needs formula and you can't get it and he or she's crying all night. Yeah. And as we see food supplies coming under fewer and fewer large corporations, it will be nothing for there to be natural famines or created man-made famines. There will be earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pangs. They'll deliver you by tribulation and put you to death. You'll be hated for all my name's sake. Many will fall away. And we're going to talk about that. Have we seen those who claim they were believers? Have we seen some fall away? More and more, all the time. Lawlessness will increase. And here's the Twitter verse. Ready? Verse 12. Here's the Twitter verse. The love of many will grow cold. Go on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, go on there and see the way people talk to one another nowadays when they can do so anonymously. The love of many will grow cold, and the gospel will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations. Has the gospel been proclaimed in all nations? Yes, it has. It has been proclaimed in every single nation there is. And then the end will come. And we're going to continue to follow these signs as we go through the book of Revelation. So you know the answer to question 1 and when it happened. When did the temple get destroyed? We know that. What are the signs of the end to come? There will be definite signs. The second coming is a signed coming. It will have accompanying signs. And we've just seen some of them. But as for that middle question, when will the coming of the Son of Man be? When will Jesus Christ? There's his second coming when he comes back to judge the whole world. And remember it said in the book of Revelation, when that comes, all the nations of the earth will mourn because they'll see whom they have pierced. His second coming, when he splits the eastern sky, when he comes down on the Mount of Olives, that's at the end of the age. But what about when Jesus comes for you and for me? Ooh, let's keep going. Look down in verse 29. The coming of the Son of Man, Jesus' second coming, immediately after the tribulation of those days. Wow, there'll be great tribulation, such as has never happened before. The sun will be darkened. The moon won't give light. Stars will fall from heaven. The powers of the heavens will be shaken. There will be celestial calamity and cataclysm such that we have never seen when Jesus returns, when he comes back right before the second coming. Then he will appear. All the tribes will mourn when they see the coming of the Son of Man. He'll call out his angels. He'll gather the elect from all the places of the earth, from the four winds. Who will those elect be? I'll give you a little, I'll answer that now. They'll be the saints who come to Christ during the tribulation period. Amen? Right? So we've got all those signs, but then in verse 36, Jesus does okay, I've told you the answer to question 1. You're going to see a destruction of the temple. I've told you the answer of the signs for question 3. When am I going to return? What's it going to look like? But that's question 2. But, notice the change, verse 36. But concerning that day and hour. What day and hour? Well, I told you when the temple's going to be destroyed. I told you the sign, question 3. When will the end of the age come? What's the one he hasn't told us? When are you coming back to take your bride home? When's the rapture? Right? What's that middle question? But, he says, concerning that day and hour, no one knows. When's the rapture going to be? No one knows when it happens. No one knows. They don't know the day. Nope. They don't know the hour. Nope. Nobody knows. Anybody tells you they know when the rapture is happening, they don't know. The Lord knows. Not even the angels of heaven. And when Jesus was on earth speaking, he says, nor the Son. When Jesus spoke those words, he did not know the date of the rapture. Because there were certain bits of knowledge, certain things he did not know because he had emptied himself of the full knowledge and glory of God for a time while he was on earth. He knew some things. He knew a lot more than most folks know. Some things as God he retained. But when the rapture would happen, Jesus said, the Son doesn't even know at this moment. Once he got back to heaven, crucified, risen, glorified, back in heaven, I'm sure Jesus knows the date now because he is fully restored as God. And we see him resplendent in Revelation. We've been all through that. But then he didn't know. Only the Father knew at that time. Concerning that day and hour, no one knows. But here's what it's going to look like right before the rapture. What's it going to look like? Verse 38. In those days before the flood, think about when Noah was preaching. God's coming. God's coming. I'm building an ark. That's why I'm building it. Repent. Be saved. Turn back to God. God is coming. Destruction and judgment are on the way. From the time of Methuselah, 969 years. Methuselah meant after his death comes judgment. God gave humans almost another 1,000 years to repent. Only 8 did. Just like in the days of Noah, there's going to be a whole world out there going, you Christians, your message is nonsense. They'll either say, when you die and it's over, or, well, if you die in this life, you get remade as a worm or a fox or something else. You suffer a little, and then you get made again, and there's this cycle of reincarnation till finally you reach nirvana, or, well, if I just work hard enough, I can earn heaven by good deeds. Or, a lot of people just say, there is no heaven. There is no hell. You Christians, just like in the days of Noah. It says they were eating and drinking. Anybody going out to lunch today? Anybody have a cold beverage after you cut the grass or finish a long day of work? Just like in the days of Noah. They were marrying and giving in marriage. I just married off, literally, because I did the service, gave away and married my middle daughter. Just like in the days of Noah, until the day came when Noah entered the ark. And they were unaware, well, they were only unaware because they chose to be, until the flood came and swept them away. So will the coming of the Son of Man be. When Jesus comes back in the rapture, he's going to take some and leave others. Remember, Jesus said, some will come to me and say, Lord, Lord, did we not do this, that, and the other in your name? And Jesus said, depart from me, what? I never knew you. Jesus said, when his disciples were wondering about false believers, he said, let them continue, even some among the body, even some among the church. Let them continue to be among the body. Let them grow up like the wheat and the tares grow up. Soon, true believers and unbelievers, they'll eventually show themselves by their fruit, by their actions, by their walking away, by their refusing to obey. You'll know soon enough. Besides, it's not for you to judge the heart. Now, we can judge the fruit of how people are acting, but eventually their secret hearts, that's for God to judge. Right? He knows. Nobody's pulling the wool over his eyes. Nobody gets into heaven pulling a fast one on God. It doesn't happen. But Jesus says this, therefore, stay awake, for you don't know on what day your Lord is coming. But know this, if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his master has set over his household? That means God has entrusted us with his church. Jesus said, I'm still here with you. I haven't forsaken you, but I have made you, set you over my church to worship, to proclaim, to evangelize, to disciple. I've given you the Great Commission as my servants. Who's the faithful servant? The one who's ready when the master comes, the one who, when the master does return at the time of the rapture, right? Blessed is that servant, verse 46, whom his master will find so doing. What does that mean, so doing? The master of the house comes back to find the servant rightly feeding the other servants, the other folks in the house. Do I rightly feed you from his word? Then I'm doing what the master has set me to do. The master is coming back to see if those who say they're the servants are carrying out the Great Commission. When he comes back, is he going to find us doing it? Then we've been faithful servants when he comes back. If we just knew when he was coming back, we could do like the bumper sticker says, Jesus is coming, hurry, look busy. Right? If we knew, we'd get to work. And Jesus finishes this saying, because you don't know when the rapture is happening and because there is no sign, you be working, you be learning, you be studying, you be praying, you be watchful. Because when the master comes back and finds those lazy, unproductive servants, you can read the rest of this chapter and see what the master will do to them. And then he's going to place those false servants outside of the blessing, outside of heaven, outside of the master's presence, where there's utter darkness, weeping, gnashing of teeth. But he says, we are watching, we are working, we are worshiping, and we are waiting. Because though we don't know the exact day and hour, we can already see the signs looming and gathering for when the Great Tribulation will hit. And if the rapture comes before the Great Tribulation, and we're already seeing how that could come about, then folks, can it be long? Can the rapture be far away? Next week, we'll finish this up. We'll go through all that the rapture means, exactly what's going to happen, exactly when we'll be called, exactly what we can look forward to as we finish out the times. And then after next week, we'll go into the troubles leading all the way up to the triumph. Well taught, well prepared, well ready. That's how I want you. So we take our time to do this so that no one leads you astray. It elicits and gives us the heart cry that every one of us who's a Christian here has sung. At one time or another, we said in our own voice, in our own words, Savior, while on Faye, Kevin, Bruce, Betty, while on others you're calling, do not pass me by. And you didn't. Thank you, O Savior. Amen.